Alright, howdy everybody. Welcome to the channel, it's Patrick from Team Bear COD. I want to showcase my Brandon deck profile for the format. Brandon's really strong deck this format. It has a lot of outs and a lot of options to Snake Eyes, which are very overprevalent. They it'll probably get hit, but they'll probably get a slap on the wrist, which means that this deck will still be good going into the next format. So it's in a good spot. I wanted to showcase what I'm playing. I'm playing a 60 card variation. Right now, this is basically just proof of concept because I don't have a lot of tops with this or anything at a regionals yet. When I go to a regionals, I'll take this to a regionals and see how well I do. But so for the time being, this is just proof of concept. But for the variation I'm playing, for the Despian names, 3 Aluber and a Tragedy. Aluber is pretty standard. It's your primary starter. It's what you need to get to your searchers, and it is a searcher, so you need to get to a lot of your engine pieces and just in general searching extenders and stuff like that. It's just really helpful. I don't think it warrants that much of an explanation. And then Tragedy is for when you get stuck in certain spots. In cases where you only open like Fusion, you can dump this with the Fusion, and then you can search Aluber, or you have another search target. We'll get to it in a second. But that's it for the Despia names. For Fawn of Albaz names, we got the 3 Fawn of Albaz. Goated. This card's great. Gotta love to see him in your opening hand. He's really good at breaking boards. This card's crazy. And then 2 copies of Cartesia, and then 1 Quem. This is your other search target off Tragedy. So Quem is, in theory, a lot better than she actually is in practice. So if you structure your deck around 2 card combos, like, it's actually better to open with her. But I wanted to focus on like 1 card combos for the deck because 60 card variations really need that. So Quem's really more of a combo piece than she is a starter in this deck. So that's why you're only playing 1. And then Cartesia is just really good as an extension across the board. Cartesia is in a really good spot. So you don't need more than 2 though. It's like you can theoretically play 3 if you wanted. I feel like that's player preference, but in my experience, 2's been a number I've been very comfortable with. I'm pretty happy with it. So oh, geez. Did not mean to ruffle the mat up like that. Jesus Christ. There we go. And then I'm also playing, for the rest of the Fallen of Albaz related names, 3 Shrouded Dragon. You really need this in 60. In like lower deck counts, you could probably get away with 2, but I think you still play this at like higher than 1 nowadays. Because previously you only played 1 of this, and that was largely in like draw formats where like draw was very overprevalent because this card draws you cards, so it plays into draw really hard. But now that draw is like not really that great anymore because Snake Eye can just completely play around it. Like a competent Snake Eye player will just completely like dumpster over anyone playing draw. Like Droll's basically irrelevant against that deck. The only thing it really stops is getting them access into Fire King stuff, and they don't need it 9 times out of 10, so it's largely irrelevant. So this means that Brandon can get away with playing 3 of this and not without really any too much worry. The only reason you play less than 3 in like a lower deck count variation is largely just because 1, you don't have the room, and 2, you start clogging on them. In 60, you can, like, it's kind of mandatory you have to play 3. Mercourier. I'm only playing 1. It's just a combo piece and sometimes negate. You pair this with another spell I'm playing generally most of the time, but it's still helpful. You have to play it. And then I'm also playing 1 Kitt. Kitt's a good like tertiary starter basically. It's not as good as opening like Aluber or just straight up opening Fusion in a lot of cases, but it's still solid enough to warrant playing 1, especially in 60. I think even a lower deck count, I might still play this at 1 because it's really helpful in some lines, but it's for the time being it's fine at 1. I don't need it at more than that. But that's it for the Fallen of Albaz related names. For the next portion of the deck, we got some Bystials. So 2 Lubellion. I'm playing 2 Saronir, 1 Magnamut, and 1 Druiswarm. So Magnamut's at 1, standard. In 60, you kind of want to see some of this package. It's good in the mirror, and it's really good in the voiceless voice matchup. So you kind of want to see some like removal for voiceless voice, and so this is why I played like a slightly higher bestial count name, or bestial name count, excuse me. And Saronir is really good just for comboing in general. Like if you pair this with Cartesia here. Like that's full combo is opening that. Like that's full combo. So it's not bad to open. It's not bad to like play multiples of these in 60 just so you see it in your opening hand. You can open with it. And like I said, worst case scenario, it's like good into the voiceless voice matchup in the mirror. So it's not like it's that big of a deal to kind of clog on it sometimes. Worst case scenario, you can kind of rely on your bestial package to get you through into subsequent turns, because if you see Magnamut, like that searches you Fallen of Albaz, and you can start breaking your opponent's board on the subsequent turn after you search him, which is really helpful. But even against Snake Eyes, like Snake Eyes have like Link Karibo and like IP Masquerena, like they go into dark targets for you to be able to banish, so it's not like it's the end of the world if you see it in Snake Eye. Like you can still you still have some options against them if you see this against them, so it's not too bad. But that's it for the bestial package. It's relatively small. Nightmare Lock, I mean, kind of goes without saying. Even if this card gets banned, like, this deck really doesn't need it. It's really just here as like a cheese strat against your opponent, just to be able to attempt to kill them. I think if I were to cut this list down below 60, I'd probably cut this entirely, honestly. It's kind of just here for extra options sometimes. It generally, like, it comes up in times where you open like Fusion plus Servant, like that's like Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock right there. But it's overall it's just okay. Against Snake Eye, in the Snake Eye matchup, it doesn't actually stop that much, believe it or not. Sometimes they can still attempt to play through it, just because they can set up and then like they can just set up their graveyard for like Flame Purge and a bunch of other shit, and they can still potentially attempt to interact with you and then still like maybe kill you. It depends on their opening hand. After you set up, like ideally you already have your board set up so that you can play around that, but it's there are some Snake Eye hands where they just don't care whether this is on the field, and it's really rough. In a lot of cases, I think there are like a lot of branded players running around right now that like they basically play this in a sideboard against the Snake Eye matchup, and they use it for going second to kill their follow-up. And I didn't think that was necessarily bad, but I wanted to mainboard it because I'm playing 60, and it's like I said, it's a G strat, so that is why it's here at the end of the day. And then I'm playing 3 Nib for hand traps. I have some others at the end, but these are the monster hand traps I'm playing. So in branded, it's bad to play hand traps that trade 1 for 1 in branded. It doesn't generally perform that well. Branded kind of needs blowout cards that like help like equalize the game state, so that way their engine can start breaking your opponent's board. And Nib is a really good way to do that in this format, because Nib has Nib has good interactions with Rogue, and then like it has good like interaction with Snake Eye. Snake Eye doesn't have a lot of lines to play around this unless they open the Formula Synchro online. That's like the only way that they can out this in a lot of cases. So like generally the Fire King Snake Eye line, they don't have as many ways to play around it. The pure Snake Eye line does, but again they have to open like not a specific hand, but like they have to open pretty well to be able to play around this. So or crossout's rough. If you see crossouts, you get cheesed. It is what it is. For the spells, for branded spells, 3 Fusion. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Just dump 2, bro. Like, this card's great. It's a good card. 3 Opening as well. Again, also similar position. This card's really good in the deck. It's very solid. Yeah, the fact that it doesn't discard for cost either, it's like it's great. Just the fact that it can trigger Tragedy if you hard open it, it's like, yeah, being able to chain block Aluber comes up sometimes. It's very nice. I'm also playing 2 copies of High Spirits. So I like this in this deck. It's really nice to just have 1 in general in circulation. I'd considered playing 3, but I felt like it was too much. I'm already playing Servant, so like High Spirits kind of, you don't need more than 2, I think, if you're playing Servant. In a lower deck count, which I'll experiment with later, I was probably going to end up playing 3 and then cutting Servant altogether, because Servant's good, but it's probably your worst branded starter realistically, so it's not ideal in a lot of cases to hard open it and nothing else. It's okay to open this plus another dragon or something, because this gets you a guaranteed starter, so that's really nice. But so that's why High Spirits is in the deck, and it's also really good just because it keeps coming back to your hand in a lot of cases in subsequent turns after you either dump it or like if you activate it turn 1 and then like it starts coming back to your hand like turn 2 and 3, so it's pretty helpful. For the rest of the branded spell traps here, sorry, it's 60 card, I need a lot of room here. 1 red, 1 white, 1 lost, and then 1 regained is my tech for the deck. For the format, these are pretty self-explanatory. White and lost in particular are seeing a lot more play in the deck now. I don't think these warrant an explanation. I see some people, they'll play red at 2 nowadays. Red at 2 is a little bit more common now. I dislike that heavily, especially in this format, because the mirror doesn't come up as frequently as the last time this card was being played at 2, which was like post Burst of Destiny. Like, that's not frequent anymore. And then on top of that, like, red is it can be a tempo swing, but only if you have the proper setup in Grave, and usually the kind of cards that you're able to target in Grave are basically just going to be Fallen of Albaz, and if your opponent removes that, you're just cooked. So it's very like unreliable, like as a blowout card, which is really awkward. So it's one of the reasons I'm playing Regain. Regain's really nice. You just get to recycle a lot of your banished stuff, and it has a really nice interaction with SP Little Knight, because like SP Little Knight's really good in the format. Like, it's probably arguably the best card printed to date. So the fact that you can just shuffle it back is on activation is really nice. It's really good. So Regain's pretty good for that interaction. So moving on into the rest of the spells here. 3 deployment, pretty standard. You summon Fallen of Albaz or Cartesia. I mentioned this earlier. I'm playing 3 Servant. It's nice as like follow up. Basically, if you open like a way to see Fusion or like Aluber, like you cook your opponent if you open like that plus this, because that's Gimmick, Puppet, Nightmare, Lock. So if you ever take out the Gimmick, Puppet, Nightmare, you kind of don't need Servant at that point. Like I said, Servant's kind of the worst starter you have in the deck, because it doesn't actually do anything on your turn. It's mostly just set up for end phase so you can play during your opponent's turn. So Servant's good, but it's not the be-all end-all like it used to be. Like it used to be really good post I think, like, well, not post, but like pre-Cyberstorm access. It was really good there, because the deck didn't really have a lot of good ways to play around it back then. Now they do, which it's a lot better now, but good lord, those are rough. 3 thrust, excuse me. Shoutouts to Raymond, he's loaning me his thrust for the time being. This card's really good in the deck. You just search any engine piece you want. If you get hand trapped, it's a really good extension to play through Ash. You kind of need it to play through Ash in some cases, so thrust is really nice. And then the last 2 like pseudo starters for the deck is 1 Burial and then 1 Sarc. So Burial and Sarc can both dump the same card, which is Tragedy for Aluber search. And then it's actually better to banish the Mercourier off Gold Sarc 9 times out of 10, just because it gets you a search on something else that you might need. So it's generally better to not use this on Tragedy, because you actually want Tragedy in graveyard rotation, so that way you can reset some of your spells later off of a Tragedy graveyard effect. So, but you still have to play these for the starter. They're just extra starters in 60, which is really nice. And then let's see. For the like non-engine, I guess, for the spells, Droplet. I mentioned this earlier. Branded does not perform well with like trading 1-for-1 hand traps, so Droplet's in a good position to kind of equalize board states if you happen to go second. Same thing with Nib. Like, if you see them, like, you're probably in a good position generally. Droplet in particular allows you graveyard setup too, which is really nice, and just the fact that your opponent can't respond to it most of the time is really helpful too. This will look weird, but I'm also playing 2 Super Poly. So something I noticed in the deck is that, like, Super Poly is kind of weird to use defensively. You actually really want to use it offensively and not defensively. So I felt like playing 3 was a little too much if I was playing this offensively. Because like playing this defensively effectively means that you're only Super Polying your opponent's board and not yours. Just to be able to clear it, and like that's not that great against Snake Eye or the Voiceless Voice matchup in a lot of cases. Like the Voiceless Voice matchup, like you're basically just making what's Skull Guardian's type? I never remember. It's either Mud Dragon or Garura, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't get you enough pressure just off of that alone. Like it's generally not enough pressure, and they usually have ways around it. They can still like play like Saravis and some other stuff. Like it's it's not that great against him. I noticed, so I generally tend to avoid it in that matchup, and I play this offensively instead. So it can be used for that purpose, but I'd rather use this to ensure that stuff like Fauna of Albaz goes through, because that's like really good, just ensuring that you get Mirror Jade on field for and just in rotations. That way you can really screw over people for their board state. It's really nice. One Call by the Grave. It's Call by the Grave. Like, gotta play around Ash somehow. I'm also playing 2 Talent, Search Ball Thrust, and if you happen to hard open it, it's nice. And then 1 Duster, just for the sack. You don't have to play this in main. This is just a personal tech for me. You know, there's stuff like Lab going around in like our local area, and it can be helpful in the Snake Eye matchup sometimes too, especially given the fact that it's searchable. It just prevents you from losing to like really dumb shit that you happen to come across that people cheesy with. So that is the Duster plan. If I were to cut this list down, this is probably going out almost immediately. So like I said, when I play test around with the lower deck count a little bit more, I'll showcase that, and it'll be in a it'll be a little different. I'll probably end up doing that for regionals. Retribution, standard, you have to play 1. Duplication's also pretty standard. This is your primary thrust search target. You just set this off thrust after your Brand of Fusion gets ashed, and Brand of Fusion basically hasn't gotten ashed at that point, because you can't ash duplication. The effect of duplication doesn't include the effect to dump a monster from deck to grave, so you can only Ghost Spell this at that point. So if you're getting Ghost Spelled, it is what it is. It sucks, but happens, right? But it's pretty hard to out this card, especially in game 1. And then I'm playing Banishment, so this is not really a tech that's seen that much in TCG anymore, but it's really nice. It gives you a lot of opportunity to be able to effectively fight your opponent with a lot of stupid shit. You get to revive like Albion and then like make Draco's Tapelia, usually with like your opponent's like usually you can use it with like your opponent's like IP Masquerade in the Snake Eye matchup, or like Link Creepo, banish it, get it out of rotation. Like that's really good generally. And then it's also really good in the mirror. Obviously the mirror, it's like that card's so good in the mirror. So it's in general it's pretty nice, but that's it for the deck. It's 60, like I mentioned. It's a little high, but the deck can afford to play it, so I figured why not, right? I did want to try it out too, so it was something I was looking to try out. And so far it's been performing pretty well. I haven't really bricked that much with it. I think so far out of the playtesting rounds I've done, I think I've only had like 2 hands where I literally just couldn't do anything. I had to pass. But I did, like, out of like the 20 or so games that I played, like all the rest of the hands it was playable, so I was like, works for me. So for the extra now, I'll just cover the extra. I'm not going to cover the sideboard. The sideboard's kind of superfluous. Like it's largely dependent upon your area as well. So I'll do this. I'll do sideboard for regionals. Like after I do regionals, like I'll do a sideboard then. But I'm not going to bother doing sideboard right now. And then so for the extra 2 Brainerd Dragon, I think this is pretty standard ratio. You need at least 2. 1 Lubellion, you don't need more than this. Kashtira is not real. That's not a real deck. I don't know what you're talking about. 2 Mirror Jade. You need the boss monster. He's really solid. Gotta play Mirror Jade somewhere. And then for the rest of the Fauna of Albaz names, 1 Albion, 1 Rinworm, 1 Titanic Lad. So these all have their. This is basically just like your utility set. Like this is your extra utility set. So like Albion's for the Gimmick Puppet Lock. He's also here to play around evenly matched. It's not really common in the format anymore, but that is his primary purpose. Usually, being able to Gimmick Puppet Lock people in a lot of cases is just a bonus. And then Rinworm's really good. You got to play Rinworm. It's like it pairs really well with Mirror Jade. If you get these 2 on field at the same time, you can activate Mirror Jade effect, and then Rinworm negates the effect, so it counts as Mirror Jade not activating, so you can activate Mirror Jade again on the next turn, but you can dump one of your Fauna of Albaz fusions into graveyard and then trigger that effect at end phase, which is really nice. Then Titanic Lad. It's just for getting over beefy bodies, and in a lot of cases you dump this to be able to summon Quem at the end phase, so that's always helpful too. So that is the mentality for the Fauna of Albaz fusion names. And then playing the 1 Gringuignol, and then the 1 Despian Quertus for it to tag out into. I have another tag out target, but it's a synchro, so I have it later in the deck. Quertus is really good, just being able to boost down, or not boost, but like drop your opponent's guys to 0 is really helpful, because usually the only time this doesn't come up is in the mirror, so that's nice. And then this card's just really good for utility across the board. The Grand Guignol, this card's crazy utility in this deck. When this card came out in Darkwing Blast, this card was nuts. Like, this card was so good. And then, or was it Darkwing Blast? I think it was actually, no, I think it was Photon Hypernova, actually. I can't tell because of the lighting. I'm pretty sure it's Photon Hypernova, though. So for Super Poly targets, Garura, it's a good card. And then Mud Dragon, also another good card. These are like my only Super Poly targets. This is just, it's also good to dump off Grand Guignol in some cases, because Guignol can dump this. Sometimes you need that for an extra draw. It can help you set up too during your next turn, but this is really only like just a pure Super Poly target. So if you don't want to play this, you can replace this with literally anything else if you want. Dragospelia. Standard, you need like an extra negate name in the deck. This comes up a lot. And then I also like playing Borlo Furious Dragon. This card's really good. You just need 2 Dark Dragons, and he's a pop a card on the field. That's what he can do. It's good. It's very nice. It helps you get over like weirdo floodgates. Like, this is basically your way for being able to play around anti-spell and summon limit. Like, that's what this does. And then yeah, that's part of the reason why Duster's in the deck as well. It's like that helps you play around summon limit as well. So it's pretty nice. I could sideboard it, but I can mainboard it, so I figured I might as well, because it's searchable, you know, it's not like it's a problem. But this is your other way for being able to make it like within engine, to be able to outsource stuff like that sort of stuff within engine, so it's pretty good. And then last card for the 15th card is the Lulu. You can dump this off of Nadir Servant if you're really hurting for engine, so that you can summon stuff. Yeah, because like you can like Nadir Servant, dump this card, add Fallen of Albaz, and then this will summon a spellcaster whose attack equals its defense at the end phase of the turn. So you could summon like Cartesia. If you already have access to Cartesia, like it's on field or something, then you can just summon Quem instead, and then Quem can dump one. So it's nice. It's pretty good. I think at some point or another we'll probably have to do a branded combo tutorial. A lot of people know him at this point, but Brandon does have a lot of cool lines and combo pieces to go through, so it's pretty fun, and I kind of wanted to showcase it. But that's pretty much it for the deck profile. Like I said, when I get done with regionals at some point or another, I don't know when there's going to be another regionals in our area. I'll have to look, but when there's another one, I'll go there, and I can put my money where my mouth is, I guess, and play the deck there and see how well it works. So, but otherwise, that's it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.